Hello and welcome to Sustainapod, the podcast produced by young people for young people about the world's sustainability. We talk to professionals and change maker about what it takes to build a more sustainable present and future, sharing stories, tips, and insights for you to take actions. Now, today we're on the topic of sustainable finance and how young people like us can stay on top of this fast evolutioning topic. A key focus of sustainable finance has been ESG. Now, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. There's been the rise of finance product and activities that meets the ESG standards. Today, we're joining with a special guest, Noel Lam. Noel Lam, can you tell us more about your background, career, and who you are?
Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. Thanks for inviting me to this podcast. I'm Noel, as Mike introduced. I'm now working in the Singapore State Investment Firm as a sustainability specialist. So I am the senior associate in the sustainability strategy and climate change strategy team in the company, responsible for all the engagement initiatives company have on dealing with like internally or externally with our portfolio companies. So before I begin, I just want to make sure that the views that I share today are only personal views. They do not represent my company. Nonetheless, I maybe just share a bit of my career trajectory. So my career path is actually never linear, but I think one common value that is shared across each of my different jobs is curiosity, which is also the willingness to learn. So after I graduate, I'm in the UK with a degree in political science. I actually did not think about going into sustainability at the time. So at the time I was thinking about like what is the industry that I can learn the most. So I went into banking and finance. I work in HSBC as I'm a career there as a research analyst. It actually provides me a very solid foundation in the investment management industry. But when I woke up and I actually think, what is the point of doing this? Like I need to go to work every day and just kind of ask myself the question, is this really what I want to do for the like 30 years later? And then I decided that actually it maybe not. I want to do something that is meaningful, that is motivating, is passionate enough to drive me wake up every day morning and go to work and smile after work as well. So I think at that point, after around 4 years in HSBC, because in HSBC I also have a little bit exposure on ESG investment themes at the time. I decided that sustainability is something that I really want to learn about. Sustainability is like how you can kind of preserve resources we have, how to generate a better lives for our current generations, our next generation, each generation prospers. So at the time, I think sustainability is a really interesting topic, especially in the finance world. Sustainability is like a light shedding into my career world. So at the time, I decided to actually take a pause from HSBC. So I actually stopped working for 6 months. And in that time, I actually prepared my exam in some of the ESG investing certificates like CFA, Sasgar, and then I got a job in Moody's, credit rating agencies in their ESG team. So it's more like learning about climate products, learning about how ESG kind of works, how is it used by exam managers. And then after, I think around a few months, I also work in another ESG firm, which is called ISS. So this is more like a specialist boutique ESG rating firm where I acting like a ESG consultant. So I think this two jobs experience really helped me to build the foundations and the passion in sustainability, especially in ESG, how the intersects between corporate, private sectors and the financial market, and also sustainability as an academic topic, how each of these three angles can intersect at one point. And I think that also leads me to my role now, which is in the Singapore State Investment Firm Temasek. My role now is more about a testament to my continuous journey of learning, curiosity in my professional career, and also with my passion for sustainability. So this role actually allows me to engage in a lot of global initiatives, driving the whole like company strategies with international best practices in sustainability. And I think one thing that really stands out working in an investment firm is that the authority you have and the driving force you have to shape a better world, to make sure that companies can really act now instead of later. This seems like a lot of jobs, but I'm actually still very young. I think each of my decisions, each of my move in my career, and eventually now embarking a very specialist role in sustainability is really driven by the curiosity that I want to learn more and also at the same time doing good for the society.
That's really interesting. To any of the people who don't know, what is sustainable finance
What is sustainable
and
finance?
sustainable investing? Yeah.
Okay, so I think before we begin, sustainable finance and sustainable investing are two different things. So, for example, sustainable finance, it can be playing a very pivotal role in addressing global challenges like climate change, social inequality, environmental degradation. It can be a lot of different financial products, but most of the time we are talking about very specific financial instruments like sustainability linked bonds, green bonds, social bonds. So these bonds are mostly issued by corporates to fund a certain specific projects they want to work on, which is sustainability related. So, for example, maybe a company want to fund a project, build a dam in South Africa. They can work with a bank and issue a bond, and then the green bond can be sell to the institutional investors or retail investors, depending on the type of the bond. And then the proceed of this bond, the use of proceed would go to like building the dam for a good cause because given is a green bond. So that is sustainable finance. Like you have a very specific type of finance, very specific type of instruments, and then you are financing into a very specific type of projects. Sustainable investment is more generic. Most of the time, we are talking about making investments in companies or funds that intend to generate measurable ESG impacts alongside a financial return. So maybe we can also talk about that more later as well. But generally, in sustainable investing, we have two different types. Like in equities, we have like public companies. So you are investing, or your funds is investing into a lot of different publicly listed companies. And if there's a sustainability tilt on that, you are investing with a lens of sustainability. You're investing in clean technologies, publicly listed company, for example. You're investing in companies who are having a good practice on sustainability, who maybe have in terms of social, they have a very low injury rate if they are a construction company. In governance, maybe they have a very diverse board. And in environment, maybe they are promoting some, like Tesla, for example, promoting electric vehicle, which is a very good thing for energy transition. So sustainable investment is mostly, like to be short, sustainable investing is mostly investing in companies. Sustainable finance is mostly investing in products.
Can you tell us more about ESG investing as well?
So just now I talk about sustainable investment. Sustainable investment is a very generic term, mostly about investing, incorporating ESG elements into the decision to invest into companies. So ESG investment is more like a subset of sustainable investing. So it focuses on how environment, social, and governance factors can impact the long-term return of assets and securities. So for example, there are 100 stocks, and then you are a asset manager. You want to invest in ESG. So you want to pick 50 stocks based off ESG elements out of these 100 stocks. So on that note, you would first define what are the criteria for environment, social, and governance. For example, environment, your criteria is, does the company contribute to climate change mitigation, adaptation? And then social side, does this company have a very labor right policy? Do they look into human right due diligence? On governance side, like what is the governance practice around this company? Like, do they have independent boards? Do they have diverse workforce in gender or religion or race? So you have this criteria being mapped out. And then now you want to select those 50 stocks out of the 100 stocks based on this criteria. So you assign a score under each criteria, and you aggregate all the scores in each of the criteria to be like an overall kind of score for that stock. And then now you have something we call the ESG scores or ESG rating. Now you can easily rank what are the overall best companies' performance in ESG. So I think this is the most quantitative way right now in the market on how people invest in like ESG investment. Obviously, there are drawbacks on this method because ironically, a lot of like major oils, they may have a high ESG scores because maybe they're very good in their social scores or their governance scores. For example, like Chevron, they have a floating maybe LNG facility. They protect their employees by having a lot of safety protocols. So the social score are good. And then governance, maybe they have a very good governance practices in their boardroom. So the governance score are very good. So now out of like, if it's equally weighted, the 66% of the score of Chevron is already being very high. So despite the environment score is actually quite low because they are like oil companies. But despite that, because all of your social and governance scores are actually quite high, your overall score won't look too bad. So I think that is one of the problem in the industry now. So when we talk about ESG investment, a lot of people look into it very comprehensively. And I think this is a good thing because it's easy for companies to getting rated. But on the other side, some investors, they are not satisfied with this process. They want it to be more specific. I want to invest in a specific theme. I want to invest in hydrogen. I want to invest in clean technologies. So that actually give rise to another investment world, which is called impact investing, which is more specific. Most of the time, it's also unlisted companies or like capitals, and then they would venture funds into specific companies that specialize in a specific technology. In this case, would be clean technologies or decarbonization or ESG.
So I'm sure that will be really, really good and eye-opening to a lot of young people listening. But now we've talked about like different bonds and different companies and credit rating and all. How about as a whole economy, what is your current view of the economic growth? Is it compatible with the effort to mitigate climate change and all this environmental stuff, and why?
Not only can these two coexist, but they can also mutually reinforce each other. So I think the key lies in the approach we take towards economic growth. What do we mean by economic growth? Most of the time we talk about growth is generate excessive returns and to beat the market, to have a beta, to have alpha. So I think that is changing now. And the company where I'm at now, we believe in the concept of sustainable growth, which is also about growing economically while reducing our environmental footprint and making a positive social impacts. So we have a few examples that investment that are bridging the gap between economic growth and mitigating climate change. The first one is like what I mentioned, investing in technologies. We actually actively invest in companies that are at the forefront of clean technology innovations. So this company can be developing solutions that are not only environmental friendly, but also economically viable. For instance, like investment in renewable energy technologies like solar are not only reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, but also creating jobs and driving down the energy costs in the long term. So this is also fostering economic growth. And at the same time, the market values of these companies are actually growing as well. So at the same time, they also generate financial return. So this is balancing both financial return, economic growth, and mitigating climate change. Another example can be sustainable agriculture and food technologies. I think another economic problem is the global population is rising. It's very crucial for us to have sustainable agriculture and enough food so to stop zero hunger. So I think invest in agri-tech startups are also helping to modernize the agriculture sector, making it more efficient, less wasteful, and more profitable in the long term. So I think those are two examples that in sustainable investment, how we can balance economic growth, financial return, as well as the long-term climate mitigation measures. Yeah, and I think that is also one concept that has to be very like clear to everyone, because a lot of people, when they talk about like ESG or sustainable finance, the first thing they think about is, oh, you are losing money, you are just donating your money to somewhere else. That is not true, because more and more data is pointing out that with a very specific agenda in mind, climate change mitigation or adaptation can also drive revenues.
That's great to know. But in your opinion, is there any obstacles or things that are slowing down the transition of global sustainability in the economy?
There is one that I can think of off the top of my head, which would be particularly from the US. We call it the anti-ESG movement recently. So basically, the movement is driven by political dynamic. A lot of different political parties, they oppose to the investment in ESG or sustainable investment because they do not understand that at least in the long term, that sustainable assets can generate a good financial return. So they are opposing this. They are thinking that, oh, we put a very high emphasis on ESG investment, which we sacrificing our financial return for our like traditional investment landscape. So I think the whole anti-ESG movement is ongoing for now. But again, I think one important point about sustainable or ESG investment is the long-term perspectives of that. A lot of time, if you want to generate exact return, is a very short term. But if you talk about climate change, if you talk about all the ESG initiatives like 2050 net zero goals that we kind of pledge to, they are all about long-term investments. And our own kind of investments, like the impact of our own sustainable investments, have to be aligned with those long-term goals as well. So, so I think that is one thing that is an obstacle, maybe in the short term, because the education is not there yet. A lot of people misunderstand and also mix up financial return and sustainable growth. But I think in the long term, once firstly more education is being rolled out, and secondly more regulations being standardized, such as what EU is doing now for SFDR or EU taxonomy, or even US, you have the SEC climate disclosures coming up. Recently, you have the IFRS, which is the accounting standard body in the world, who announced the ISSB kind of accounting standards, which is really standardizing how companies should report on ESG issues. Then I think the whole landscape would move towards a mutual understanding on sustainable growth, sustainable investment, and eventually how we can mobilize this type of capitals to tackle our climate change problems.
Mm. So now that we know the difficulty and all the obstacles, right now, is there any sectors that are moving really fast or like the fastest in terms of sustainable investing? In your opinion, like the sector that they have the knowledge that they know that sustainability is not like necessarily a bad thing and they're moving really fast.
Yeah, I'm not sure other any sectors with the full knowledge on what they are doing. Because I think this sustainability is very evolving. Yeah, it's very evolving. But I can definitely point to some sectors that are very crucial in the future, and they're specifically in clean technologies. So I think clean technologies have at least two benefits, right? The first one is you drive down the overall energy cost in the long term. And then the second benefit is you actually kind of remove like basically the reliance on traditional kind of energy grid or mix like fossil fuels. I would say wind and solar are two sectors that are really fast growing. Wind, you can look into bottom fixed onshore wind traditionally. So that is basically wind farms, wind turbines you can see set on land. But I think that comes with issues where people say that, especially in the US, like, well, yeah, a lot of people complain that, oh, the wind turbines are just like destroying our land. They are just like, for example, imagine you are a US citizen, you have a wind turbine just next to you, so 24/7 it will just have the loud noise of the whole turbines kind of running, operating. So people complain about that. So there are some obstacles around there, but now we're looking into offshore wind, which is wind farms that are built in the sea. So I think that is another potential area that we can look into, because in the future, when we can move a lot of things, or we can move the technologies more scalable in the sea, that is also helping to drive down the overall cost in the long term. Apart from wind and solar, I'm also thinking in a very short period of time, a lot of companies now are discussing, especially oil and gas companies, they're discussing the use of the transition field of hydrogen or gas. Traditionally, gas, although they emit greenhouse gas less than coal, but they are still not considered as a green technologies. Having said that, I think now a lot of companies, especially the oil and gas companies, after balancing like BP, Shell, after balancing out what is like good for their financial return and what is really they can invest right now without harming a lot of their capital, they choose gas as a transition fuel. So that means they may like use a lot of LNGs. They may use LNGs fueled power ships. They may use LNGs to fuel their energy consumption. So this is also being discussed and being heavily debated in the EU to consider if gas should be included in the EU taxonomy. So I think this is also one fast growing sector that a lot of like companies now that they are not ready for the long term investment into fully into renewables. They are thinking gas as a transition fuel, and I think this is also one of the sector that we can take a closer look at.
Do you have any advice for students interested in pursuing this kind of career, so sustainable
Yes.
finance and investing?
So I think at the very beginning, I mentioned about curiosity is the driving force for me to switch between careers and to embark my career in sustainability. So again, I think like the first advice is to remain curious and build a network. For example, a finance person, one that is not just within the finance sector, but also they should build a network in the non-finance, like the non-traditional sectors, such as science, like you know, like who are working in hydrogen technologies, who working in ammonium technologies, and then we've also key representatives from different industries and companies. So I think the same applied not only in finance industry. So for example, for you, if you are in like a science background, you are studying geography or you're studying chemistry, remain curious within the field, but at the same time, build a network outside of your field is very important. This is because being multidisciplinary and branching out of your industries is the key to succeed in sustainability, given that sustainability is a topic that connects a lot of dots in a lot of different industries. So I think the first advice is remain curious and build a network outside your specialized area. I think the second thing is to be really keep yourself abstract on what are the emerging data and also connecting different dots using those data. I think that is more like a lens from like investment perspectives, like understanding different data, how they use. But as a student, I think at the same time you can also try to read different news. Every news is a data point, and it actually would start in your brain for a while, and then you can kind of connect those different data points with the issues that you're facing. So one example would be reading news on maybe ESG Today or Bloomberg Green, and then understanding how different industries kind of evolve in decarbonization, energy transition kind of pathway, and then you connect those different industries into your own understanding of sustainability. So then in the longer term, you can build your own system of different data and then different knowledge and different specialty in different sectors, and then you can understand sustainability in a bigger picture. Again, sustainability is a very multidisciplinary topic, so you have to understand data points, you have to understand news from a vast of industries to help to understand this topic better. And I think the last advice would be before looking outside your school or your project or your company, start looking within your circle. So if you're committed to digging deeper into sustainability or sustainable finance or sustainable investment, getting technicals, explore the possibilities within your school, your organization, your company, or even your project group is extremely important. A lot of people, they would turn external when they think that their current work is not satisfying. They already learn enough in their own job. That is actually not true, because a lot of times there are a lot of opportunities even within your own network. So start looking within before looking outside for opportunities, and that would open doors for you within your own network as well, and help to build your credentials within your role. So I think, to sum up, sustainability is a very multidisciplinary topic. So being curious, know the people from different kind of fields of expertise, and then getting the news, the data by a variety of sources, and then last but not least, try to look for opportunities within your own network first. I think those would be some of the advices I would give into you, and that's also how I survived so far in my own career.
In case like the kids who are listening want to embark on your journey and they're interested about the certificate you mentioned earlier, you know, the ones you said you left work for
Yes,
6 months and prepare for those ones.
yes.
What would you say about those certificates? Any preparation? What is it about, or how beneficial it is towards your career?
So those are two different concepts. So getting a cert or ramping up your knowledge through some external assurance is helping you to build your own credentials, helping you to build your own confidence to speak about this kind of matters. But on the other hand, what companies or what schools are looking for is a very mixed set of your own presentation, right? It's not only about what you can bring on the table, but also what you're really interested about, what you're passionate about. So for me, for example, I'm very interested in the topic. So I took the certs as a complementary strength into my overall presentation. And if you are thinking you are very interested in sustainability, you want to take some certs to help you to beef up the knowledge, that is totally fine. But I see a lot of people in the finance world. They're taking the cert just for the certs. Like they're not interested in this topic at all. They are just trying to find a way to impress other people or find a way to get more opportunity. So that's why my first advice is curiosity and passion. So that is the most important thing to succeed in this field. And then once you get that straight, you decide that you're really interested in this field, you can start getting more channels, like including getting certs or learn more news, data to really help yourself to beat up that knowledge. So your whole presentation at the end can be very, very good, and it's more presentable for companies or school, especially on the sustainability side.
Yeah, I totally agree about how you need to be curious and passionate about your subject in order to do well and succeed, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And don't worry, like my path is not linear. Like I'm not from an environmental science background. I'm from politics/economics. It's more like multidisciplinary topic, which you connect a lot of dots, similar to sustainability. So that's why I enjoy my job a lot. Like I love to connect different dots. One more thing about we always discuss in workplace is, do you want to be a generalist or do you want to be a specialist, right? So sustainability may be considered as a specialist topic, but even inside sustainability, you can still be a generalist like me, more on strategy, more on how to strategize, prioritize different initiatives. Or you can be a specialist like some of my colleagues. They look into hydrogen, they look into ammonia, they look into nuclear energy specifically, and then really invest their knowledge in that field to build up their connection in that field and able to build the credentials eventually. So I think really to be clear, first of all, what you're passionate about. And then if you're passionate about that topic, try your best to beef up your knowledge on that, to make yourself more presentable on that. And then last but not least, try to understand, do you want to become a journalist or do you want to be a specialist? If you want to be a specialist, then try to dig deeper. If you want to become a journalist, then that is also fine, but you need to learn, build your network around external parties, like outside your comfort zone, and build your knowledge around that as well.
I can genuinely tell that you're really passionate in your job. And with that, we'll be wrapping up this episode. Thank you so much, Noel, for your insight. And thank you for teaching us so much today. If you would like to ask us any more questions, just go on our Instagram, sustainapod_GIH, or email us at sustainapod@gmail.com. Have a great day. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.